On today's episode, we've got the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Bob on to talk about a couple of the college football win totals that were released to clients earlier in the week. And Bob is 60, 31, and 2 all-time on his college football win total best bets. And you're going to want to make sure you stick around for the end of the episode. Bob's giving out his college football national championship pick along with his top 5 there. So let's jump in.
The time is now for the Dr. Bob Sports Podcast. I am Tanner. I am our head of analytics, and I am in my 9th year working alongside Bob to originate our NFL and college basketball bets. And today, as always, I'm joined by our digital media specialist, Grant. Let's shift our focus to college football today.
Yeah, a little college football here. We had Bob on earlier, and it was an awesome interview. But before we get to it, I do want to mention the market, as usual, has moved towards those 2 NFL win totals you discussed a couple weeks ago, but both are still playable based on the constraints that you gave out. And if you haven't caught it yet, we also did a podcast to prep you for your fantasy football drafts last week.
Yep. So you can go check out both of those 2 videos on the channel. But without further ado, let's get to Bob.
Bob, welcome onto the show. The first team we want to talk about is Dan Lanning's Oregon, who got the number 1 seed in the college football playoff last year, but ultimately lost to Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. And there's been a lot of changes this offseason.
Well, yeah, Oregon, the biggest change, obviously, that quarterback. They've had the luxury of having veteran transfer quarterbacks, Bo Nix for a couple of years, and had Dylan Gabriel last year. In those 3 seasons with those experienced, proven veteran quarterbacks, they completed a minimum of 72% of their passes in that offense. This season's presumed starter was former 5-star recruit Dante Moore. He had a shot as a freshman at UCLA and was a disaster. I mean, he had over 200 pass attempts. He completed just 53.5% of his pass attempts. Finally gave way to Ethan Garber, who was expected to just be a backup. Garber came in and completed 67% of his passes in the same offense. And then obviously last year, Garber had another pretty good season. And I think he's with the Carolina Panthers now. But he couldn't beat out Ethan Garber as a freshman. Now, that was 2 years ago when he came into Oregon last year, was in this system, but he's not proven. And I'll tell you what, Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel didn't complete just 53.5% of their passes as freshmen. They both were awesome as freshmen. So I just don't think that Moore is someone you can trust to complete over 70% of his passes, given he's completed 54% in his career. And there's also been word out of Eugene that he's had trouble winning the job. There's a redshirt freshman and a true freshman in the battle. And you'd think this is the guy they want to win the job, and he hasn't won the job yet. So there's concerns there that he hasn't taken full charge of being the starting quarterback. And I just think that's because he's inconsistent. When you complete 54% of your passes, there's consistency issues. So I think Moore will be better. And I said, well, let's say he completes 65% of his passes in this sort of offense, or he might complete 60% of his passes, but with more down the field throws, which is something he did a little bit of at UCLA. But if that's the case, they're still not close to as good passing as they've been the last 3 years with Nix and Gabriel. I do think the run game will be solid. It's not as explosive as a lot of run games, but they've got good running backs, and they've had good success in 3 years under Lanning running the ball. I think that will stay the same. And on the other side of the ball, there's some questions there. Of their top 19 tacklers last year, only 4 of those guys returned. And like other major programs, they can just get transfers to come in, and they do have some talent coming in, but I don't think they're going to replace all of that talent. And I think and they've had veteran defenses the last couple of years. I don't think they'll be as good defensively this year as last year. I have them a little bit worse. And right now I have them as the 19th best defense. And last year they were 17th. So I don't think there's going to be much of a drop off defensively, but I think the offense is going to drop off a lot. And to have them priced at 10.5 wins with a likely loss at Penn State on your schedule, I just think that's a tough to get to 11 wins. I just don't see how they're going to do it. I mean, aside from Penn State, which I think is a likely loss in week 5, they've got Indiana, who I think is good again, always underrated. Cignetti's teams are always underrated. I think he's gone over, speaking of Cignetti, I had Indiana over 5.5 last year. He's gone over his win total every single season as a head coach. Then they got at Iowa, That's a good defense. And if Moore is not good, then Iowa will expose that. They've got USC. They've got at Washington, I think is a pretty good team. I predict 8.8 wins for Oregon and give them just a 27% chance of winning 11 games or more. So that would be equate to minus 266 odds, going under 10.5. And right now it's still sitting there between 190 and minus 200. And I'd lay up to minus 230 with Oregon under 10.5.
Okay. Yeah. So that's the first win total. Oregon under. Oregon did lose a program record number of NFL draft picks last year, so I love that one. Let's move on to the next team. We want to talk about the team that has the lowest win total in the SEC, but you don't necessarily agree.
Yeah, Mississippi State. And I like Jeff Lebby. I like the head coach. He was the offense coordinator at Oklahoma. And you saw what happened to Oklahoma's offense when he left. So they were terrible last year. But Mississippi State, I thought they competed. They only lost by 7 at Arizona State early in the season. So I thought, okay, this team is as good as I thought they'd be. The first game, they blew out Eastern Kentucky, scored like 51 points or something. And then they struggled a little bit. Surprised they lost to Toledo. But then their starting quarterback, Blake Shapen, got injured in week 4. And Shapen was a 2-year starter at Baylor and had success there. And I thought, oh, he's going to be so good in Jeff Lebby's offense. And in his 4 games before getting hurt, he completed 68.5% of his passes. The backup came in, Michael Van Buren, and completed only 54.7% of his passes. And even with that being the case, the Bulldogs still had a better than average offense after compensating for the defenses they faced. So if you have a better than average offense, like I think it was 0.4 yards per play, better than average compensated for defensive face. If you could do that with a guy completing 54.7% of the passes, now Blake Shapen's back, they're in good shape. And as I might want to say there for this season, I think the offense is going to be great. The running game was really good last year. I think it's going to be good again. They did lose some wide receivers, but they've got the best wide receiver they had was Jordan Mosley. He's a deep play threat down the field. He averaged 10.1 yards per target that year, which led the team. They also brought over Brennan Thompson, who was in Lebby's system at Oklahoma a couple years ago. Thompson was he was banged up. All Oklahoma receivers were banged up last year, Thompson being one of them. And he struggled a little bit, but relatively he was better than most of the receivers that Oklahoma had last year. And in the 2 years, he's averaged 9.2 yards per target in the last 2 years at Oklahoma. So he's averaging 18 yards a catch. So I think they've got 2 deep threats. They've got some slot guys. I think the offense, as long as Shapen stays healthy, I think the offense is going to be really good. And I mentioned the running game was really good last year. The top 2 running backs returned. They've added Fluff Bothwell, who comes over from South Alabama. Bothwell only averaged 7.5 yards per run, 832 yards rushing, and 7.5 yards per run. I don't care if you're in the Sun Belt or wherever you are. That's very good, and that translates. So I think Bothwell, they got 3 guys who can all run the ball. I think it's going to probably running back by committee, but all these guys are different. I think they're going to be really dynamic offensively, running the ball, play action pass, throwing it deep, 2 receivers who can really get down the field. And Shapen's a guy he's always been an accurate quarterback, and I think he can run Lebby's system extremely well. The thing that really hurt Mississippi State last year, even though Shapen got hurt and Van Buren was terrible, the defense was putrid. They allowed 6.7 yards per play in 11 games against FBS opponents last year. Now, those opponents would average 6.3 yards per play against an average FBS defense, but to be 0.4 yards per play worse than average on a national scale is terrible for an SEC team. Yeah. However, it's the second year of the system. They were really young last year, so those guys are older. They brought in some pretty solid transfers. And from a talent rating perspective, looking at what everyone's recruiting rating was coming out of high school, from a talent rating perspective, they're top 30 in talent on the defensive side. So if the defense quarter has any semblance of how to put together a defense, which I suspect he does, given he's an SEC defensive coordinator, then Mississippi State's defense should be much, much better this year. Now, as far as the schedule, I don't think they're going to be good by SEC terms, but I think they'll be a little bit better than average on a national scale, which should be good enough with that offense to win some games. Now, they got 3 very likely non-conference wins. They've got Southern Miss, terrible. Not terrible. Southern Miss is a they've got a new coach and a lot of transfers from Marshall, so they're going to be good. But relatively for an SEC team, they should handle Southern Miss. Alcorn State, that's a win. Northern Illinois from the MAC, that should be a win. So they got 3 wins. So they just need one other win. That could be
win.
Yeah, one SEC win, or maybe a home upset of Arizona State in week 2. Early season home underdogs tend to do really well in non-conference. That could be, and they competed really well with Arizona State last year, losing by just 7 in Tempe. So that's not out of the question to get a win there. So I project 5 wins for Mississippi State and give them a 67.5% chance of winning 4 games or more. That equates to minus 208 odds. Right now, they're minus 1. I see anywhere from minus 158 to minus 170. So I'd lay up to minus 175 to go over 3.5 wins for Mississippi State.
Nice. Well, there you have it. 2 win totals that Bob released to clients earlier this week. And before we go, we want to get you on record for your national champion pick. Who's the best team in the country this season?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised, but I have Texas rated number 1. Now, I don't, obviously the big talk is Arch Manning, and Arch Manning was better than Quinn Ewers last year on a compensated yards per pass play basis. He adds a running element that Ewers doesn't have. I mean, he ran for 124 yards on 13 scrambles last year. So I think the offense could be better. Even though he was better last year, I'm just going to assume that their passing offense is the same as it was last year. But I think there's more upside with Manning, and he was better than that last year. But small sample size, et cetera. So I'm just going to say he's as good as the pass offense with Ewers last year. They lost some receivers. They lost their top 3 receivers. One of those guys was a tight end, but they picked up Jack Andrews from my Cal Bears. And Andrews, all he did was he had 61 passes thrown to him. He caught 56 of them. He had the highest catch percentage in the nation last year and averaged 10.2 yards per target for a Cal offense that struggled. So I think that could be an upgrade over Gunnar Helm, who was the tight end that they had last year. And plus, they picked up some talented receivers to fill the 2 wide receivers that are gone. They've always got talent at wide receivers. So I'm not too concerned about that. So I have the offense about the same as it was last year, but I think that there's upside to that projection. Now, as far as the defense, this is the question because they lost 5 players selected in the first 4 rounds of the NFL draft. But the top 2 tacklers are back, including second-team All-American Anthony Hill, linebacker. And the defensive linemen that they lost, they brought in 5 transfers from the defensive line that are going to fill those holes pretty well. Talent-wise, they're a top 5 defense as far as talent, and I think they're going to be a top 3 defense this year. So I think they're going to be one of the best defenses in the country with an offense that's going to be good again. So I don't have them better than they were last year overall because I think the defense is going to be a little worse. But everyone else at the top, Ohio State mainly, is down this year. I think they're going to be down this year a little bit. I still have them the number 2 team in the country, but they were much better than Texas last year. And this year they've regressed a little bit, I think, and Texas is about the same. So I think Texas leapfrogs them into my number 1 spot.
Nice. Well, we'll get a good look at those 2 teams in that first game that Texas plays at Ohio State. Sounds like they're your 2 top teams in the country. Who's in the rest of your top 5 here? Yeah,
I mentioned Ohio State. The question there, I mean, obviously the great wide receivers, their defense was probably the best in the country last year, right there as there's one of the top in the country. And I think the defense is still going to be good. I just don't think they can be as good, especially in pass defense as they were a year ago. The offense is the question of the quarterback. Last year they had a veteran quarterback that they plugged in. They always have a good pass game, but I don't think it's going to be to the level it's been the last 2 years. So I think the offense will be down a little bit. They also lost Henderson at running back. So I think the offense still be great, but not as good. And I think the defense still great, not as good. So they dropped to number 2. I like Alabama as my 3rd rated team. Kalen DeBoer struggled a little bit last year. I don't think that the talent, I don't think Milroy fit his system particularly well. And speaking of the system, Ryan Grubb took a job in the NFL last year, and he was the offensive coordinator that had all that success in Washington under DeBoer. So Ryan Grubb is back now. He's at Alabama. I think the offense is going to be improved. And I think the defense is going to be a top 3 defense. They've got a lot of talent coming back. And I think they'll be a lot better in the second year of the system. So I think Alabama would be back to being Alabama. I mean, DeBoer and his staff has proven that they can coach. I mean, Washington was I think they were in the championship game a couple of years ago with the staff. So I think Alabama is going to be back this year. And then I've got Penn State. I might have Penn State ranked lower than the rest of the market, but I'm not. Drew Aller had a great season in the first year under the new offensive coordinator, but anyone's been good under that coordinator. Kansas was, Kansas in the previous 2 years had a better compensated offense than Penn State last year. So the problem Aller had before they changed offensive systems was that he didn't connect down the field. He was afraid to throw the ball, and when he did throw passes more than 15 yards, he did not have a lot of success on those passes. There are guys running wide open in this offense. As you know, Tanner, being a Kansas fan, you've seen it. You've seen this offense work at Kansas with less talent. It's no wonder that all of the top wide receivers from Penn State transferred out. They're probably thinking, I'm wide open all the time and I can't get the ball. Well, last year, Aller depended on the tight end Warren. Last year he was an All-American. Well, Warren's gone. So they got to start throwing the ball down the field more. And now they got a bunch of new receivers to break in. And those guys have talent. But Aller he just does not like to throw the ball down the field. And I don't know if he can. I mean, he's got the NFL talent, obviously, but I'm still skeptical. I still think their offense is going to be very good, but I don't think it's going to be as good as people think. And of course, Penn State's defense is fine. But I have them number 4 and then Georgia number 5. I think the new quarterback, he got some experience last year. I think he'll be fine. Beck had a down year last year compared to 2023. So I think Stockton will come in. I think he'll be fine. Georgia's defense, I think, will be better this year. They had a kind of a down year last year. So I have them as a solid number 5. So that's my top 5, and don't hold me to it.
All right. Well, sounds good. Thanks for coming on the show, Bob.
All right, guys.
Well, that was awesome having Bob on. And reminder, next week is our NFL Future Show, where we are looking to build on last year's profitable portfolio, where Tanner hit Joe Burrow at plus 850 to lead the NFL in passing yards. And he also had Jared Verse at 9-1 to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. So we will see you guys next week.
Bob, what do you think of Nebraska? Grant's a big Nebraska fan.
Please.
Well, there's usually a big jump, sophomore quarterback. Freshman to sophomore starters usually have the biggest jump. So I think the offense will be better. I mean, I like the coach. He's proven third year, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's his year. I mean, at Temple, that was his year. At Baylor, that was his year. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they are in the thick of things, but there's just so much competition at the top of that league.
Yeah, it's tough.
Dana
Holgerson will be huge.
I could see them being a surprise because just given the history of the third year, he's always been great.
What win total? What win total do you have them projected?
Yeah, I wonder what I had. I probably just did it by the numbers and didn't inject the pattern of the win totals being great. Let me see what I have.
They're priced at 7.5 over minus 175. So people have been betting the over. Jeez.
Yeah, no, that's probably right. But let me see. Yeah, I have 7.4. So I had them a little under. But like I said, I mean, they've been a little disappointing the last couple of years. But I didn't factor in third year. I mean, third year is part of the algorithm. So third year coaches have their own formulas to project and generally are better. I don't know why I had them not as good. I'd have to look it up.
It might be schedule. I don't know. I haven't looked at it.
Yeah.
Schedule's not bad, actually.
Where the hell are they? I don't know what I had on there. Let's see.
Do they play at Ohio State this year?
Nope. No Ohio State.
I don't think so.
We have Michigan and Penn State.
All right, let's see.
That's basically it.
Yeah, that's not bad.
They got wins against Akron and Houston Christian. Michigan's improved. Michigan State's improved, but they should be about the same or better than Michigan State. At Maryland, Maryland's not very good. At Minnesota, Minnesota's underrated. I think Northwestern's underrated, but game's at home. I have USC underrated a little bit, UCLA underrated, and then they have Penn State and Iowa.
Okay, so
I don't
it
know.
sounds like you just have a lot of the teams in their back half of the schedule
that I
underrated.
have underrated as well.
You might have Nebraska power rated the same as the market, but you just have their schedule a little underrated.
Well, let me see. Offense improved. Offense very good. Defense defense better than average, but not that much. What did I have them? What were they last year?
The defense was good last year, but they lost the whole front.
Yeah, that must be the thing.
So maybe it's more shootouts for Nebraska this year. Could be some overs.
Yeah, I could see shootouts.
Well, they lost Gabayer, Bullock, both good players on the defense. They lost Robinson, their sack leader.
Mm-hmm.
They lost their number 2 sack guy.
Nash.
3. They lost their number 2 and 3 sack guy. The most sacks returning is 1. Yeah,
That's bad.
I have them not as good defensively, and I don't think they picked up that many transfers to fill those spots. They got Watson Trent, who's a good linebacker. He was a Sun Belt Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. But then again, he was the Defensive Player of the Year on Georgia Southern, who had a horrible defense. So is that a returning starter? I probably did not count that as a returning starter, or maybe gave him half credit.
Yeah, they only have 3 transfers starting on defense, which is not very good considering how
not
much
a lot,
lost.
considering what they lost. So I think I have their defense not as good this year.
And they lost the coordinator.
New coordinator. Yeah. Well, I think I like the old coordinators. Is the thing.
The old one was good.
I like this. It's setting up for overs.
The defensive coordinator last year was super good. Offensive coordinator Satterfield might have been the worst in the country.
Yeah, I have the offense much better. I have the offense. I mean, I might have them as let's see. God, I have them really good. Oh, 25th. Probably better than a lot of people think.
Yep.
But they have upside. I wrote upside offense, ? As a note.
And then the defense is just barely above average.
I have them about, looks like I have them a point below market, 1.1 points below market. This surprised me. I probably was thinking I liked Nebraska going in. That's what the numbers spit out on defense. So that's what I'm sticking with.